Hi, this is Mark from Altcoinbuzz, and today we're going to take a look at Bitcoin. As we wrapped up the weekend and get started on a new week, let's see what's going to be happening. We're going to shoot up to $10,000 this week by the end of the week, or are we going to go back down to 8, potentially even 6,000? Let's take a look at the charts and see what they're telling us. Also, if there's anything that you want us to talk about, leave some comments in the comment section below. It doesn't have to be on TA, although it can be. If there's an indicator that you're interested in, we can take a look at one of those and go through it a little bit more in detail. Or if there's some fundamentals that you want to go through, I can pull one of our riders on and we can go through some of those fundamentals if you're interested in the project. From the fundamental side, we've got plenty of experts on our team that can take a look at it from that angle as well. So leave your comments below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button so that this can get passed around a little bit more if you find it valuable. So let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at Bitcoin on the monthly chart since we're about halfway through the month right now and see what's going on. If you take a look at the Fibonacci trend line that I've got drawn right here, that 236 is kind of a key point for us that we've been talking about, right? This is where we launched off in 2013 on a parabolic move up. We tested that line, and that's when we went parabolic. Also, when we crossed that line back in 2017 is when we started our parabolic move up through to the beginning of 2018. Now we are right back there trying to find support on that 232. Very encouraging. Also, if you look at the 21-month moving average, where did we launch off back on that move up to $20,000? Right after we bounced off of the 21-period moving average, and look at, we've touched it again on that bottom out at about 35, right? So that's very encouraging. Now, does that mean that we need to follow the trend and continue back up past $20,000? Absolutely not. Don't have to, but this is encouraging. We could potentially wrap up this month or even the week. This is a weekly and a monthly kind of key point for us, right? This is an overall key point for us. We could drop back down in this channel right here and continue to trade up. Still very bullish, just not parabolic like we would love to see, but we did have this long range trade back between 2015 and 2017 before we jumped off of that 232 and beyond. So just something to be looking at and be aware of, that we could end up still coming back down and retesting somewhere in the $6,000 area before we come back up and break out of this 232 to go above $20,000. Or we could trade in this channel long term like we did back here and slowly break up above the $20,000. Either way, looking still very bullish, right? Now, as we look at the 1 week chart, we had that double bottom right here, much like we did back in here and here. A bullish engulfing candle totally wiped out that negative that we had the week prior. And we're starting off the week with a continued uptrend. We are finding some resistance here in this area. We'll go down and look at the lower charts to see where we're at. We're at about average volume, weekly volume. And now let's drop it down a couple notches and look at the micro a little bit closer. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is we had that crossover on the stochastic RSI on the weekly, and we talked about how we get these larger dumps when we have the crossover to the negative side on the signal. Could we still have that? How closely should we watch that? Well, we should be aware of it, but we've got some other momentum indicators that are still very strong. So on its own, I'm going to rule that one out right now. But just like with any indicator, I'm looking for confluence amongst all of the information that I have, right? The price and the volume are the two main things that I'm going to be looking at. If I'm looking at some momentum indicators like this, and I've got 3 that are going to the positive side, I'm going to rule this one out right now until I see the price action and volume act in a way that I should strongly consider this. And at this point in time, I'm not considering this to be the signal dump that we got back in these areas in here. Let's go down to the lower time frames and take a look. This is the 4-hour chart now, and you can see we're having a little bit of a struggle, just a tad bit, with the area that we're in at this point in time. We kind of figured that might happen. We've got slightly higher highs here. If we use the wicks, we've got higher highs and we've got higher lows being made. Again, very bullish, but nonetheless, some resistance being felt here. Now, what we've got to be watching for is whether or not we end up getting an ascending triangle, because at this point in time, we've got what looks to be resistance forming at this level, and then we've got this ascending level here, right? So on an ascending triangle, the weakness comes from the top side. We're going to continue to test this top side. The theoretical is here, if this plays out, that we would break back to the upside. The pressure to the upside, the buying side, is greater than the downside. So if that were to happen, we would take a measured move from the beginning of this. Would look very much like a flag, right? A bull flag. Now, if we go back up into the higher time frame, it's not quite as apparent that this is shaping up as a flag, right? This is on the lower time frame that we're seeing that flag. If that measured move was complete and we broke out of this ascending triangle from here, about 22% would take us into the $11,000 area, somewhere between 11,000 and 11,500. Now, a couple warnings here. This is the area where I'm allowed to draw some hypotheticals based upon what I'm seeing and seeing if the charts play out those hypotheticals. So Tether has been printing a ton of money again. Over the last week or so where we saw this action happen, Tether printed about $750 million. At least that's off the top of my memory. That's about where we ended up watching the whale calls. If you haven't been watching whale calls on Twitter, it's a great resource. It'll alert you when large transactions are happening, mostly liquidations on futures, but also when Tether's printing a lot of money or moving a lot of money around, or the exchanges are moving a lot of money around. Any kind of whale action that's happening in the market, you'll get those alerts on Twitter. Just a little more information to put in your back pocket. And since that Tether has been printed and we did get a rise off of it, then I start developing some hypotheticals. My hypothetical being right now that this move up was largely due to Tether. If so, where would I be happy if I were Tether? Well, I guess if I were trying to manipulate the market like that, I'd want to see it get back up to $10,000 because that seems to be the key point where everybody feels like FOMO is going to kick in. So if I look at it from that standpoint, I say, okay, we've got an ascending triangle starting to form on the lower time frames. Can we break out of this resistance? If we do, I think that our next run would be up to $10,000. Let the FOMO kick in, see where that takes us, potentially fulfill this measured move of the flag up to 11.5. And then if I'm Tether, I start backing out from there, and we get some sideways chopping action while the distribution is going on, and potentially a drop from there. So those are all the bullish sides right now. Still momentum in the market. What seems to be a nice ascending triangle forming to give us a bull flag here. A little jump push from Tether happening over the last week. So some potential FOMO kicking in here soon. So what is the bear side? Well, I just did an interview with Trader Cobb, and if you haven't listened to Trader Cobb before on his podcast, I would suggest that you go and listen to him. Great guy, super energetic, very knowledgeable out of Australia. Love the accent. And in our discussion, so listen to my podcast with him first, but in our discussion, he brought up that our corrections tend to be somewhere between 30 and 40% after its big moves. And you can see back here, starting in 2017, we had 37, then we got about 40, another 26-ish, 40, 31, right? So somewhere between that 30 and 40%, which we have not had on this move yet. And I say yet because both Trader Cobb and I believe that we do have a correction coming at some point in this move. Now, does that correction come from 10,000? Does it come from 12,000? Does it come from here at 9,000? Yet to be seen, right? But we do both believe that there is a correction coming at some point in time. And the logical thing would be, let's just take it from here. Let's just say that we get up to the $10,000 area and we have that 30% correction from there. Not 40%, but 30%. That would take us back down into the $7,000 range. 40% would take us down into that $6,000 area again, back in here. How likely is that? At some point in time, we will have a correction, right? A major correction, a retracement. And we have not tested this area of support, right? We just blown right through it. You could say that we've found some support back in here, right? There's a lot of trading action happening right in here at about $8,000. So that would be a logical area to at least test first. If we don't head back down to 6,000, it would be a logical area to test first. And 30% from this area would be somewhere in that $10,000, $11,000 range. So what potentially could happen here is we continue to move up on this parabolic move up to that $11,000. We have the FOMO kick in at 10. We take it into 11, 11.5, get our 30% correction back down and hit somewhere in the $8,000 range. The other potential would be that we find resistance, continue to find resistance at about 95, somewhere in there. And then if we make a breakdown from there and head 30% on a correction, then we head back into that $6,000 area. I did have people, when I mentioned that we could have another buying opportunity in here back in the $6,000 range, saying what happened to that buying opportunity? Well, I still think that buying opportunity, if you want to say major buying opportunity, because 30 to 40% could be our downside, right? It's still to come. It still keeps us in a very bullish trajectory up. If we start trading in this channel, right? More bullish than if we start trading in this channel, but both are a bullish scenario. Not parabolic, but still bullish. We will see a cooling off period at some point in time here, people taking profits as we start to move up. At what point is yet to be seen. Now, on the micro on the micro level, we're having anywhere between 12 and 8% corrections in this move since the start of May. So if we just say an 8% correction from here, that's going to take us back down into the $8,500 price point, and we'd want to see that hold as support, because right now that's where our support level should be. Our first support level is really at $9,000, but if we break through that, our second support area that we're looking for is in that $8,500 range. Both continue the move to the upside, even though we're going to get somewhere between an 8 to 10% retracement on those moves. This is what's called a pitchfork, so it's showing us the trajectory from the last moves. If you take the pitchfork, take it from the lowest point of the move down here up to the highest point of the second move, and then back down to the low point, that gives you this pitchfork. And this pitchfork is showing us where the medium range has been in this move up, that red line in the middle, and then it gives you the other channels to the top side and the bottom side. And you can see we're in this upward channel right now, trying to find support on the upper end of it like we did back in here. That continued support here would give us an argument for that upside to the $10,000, $11,000 area. But a down move of somewhere between 8 to 10% would still keep us above that median line, that kind of center plate mid-range of this whole move up, still give us a higher low, and then potentially launch us back up into a higher high, again, up into that 10, 10, 5, 11. So a recap here, want to find support in this box, 89.50 to 8,700. If we drop below that, we could find support at 85. A break below that, I'm starting to get nervous. But a 10% swing right now would not make me fud out on this move. I like the bull flag that's potentially forming on the lower time frames. I like the momentum indicators that we're seeing right now. Price action is following. I like the way that we're getting bullish engulfing candles after a move down. But I am cautious as we move forward, looking at those levels, partly because of the tether situation and partly because I do think we need to have some kind of major correction at some point in time. So those things, I'm just looking to see if the charts tell us that we're in that sentiment. And when I start to see those things, then I might start changing my short-term outlook. And that's what TA does. It's not a concrete, but it does give me the ability to develop a strategy and determine when I want to make my moves in and out of the market. Hey, that's going to wrap it up for today. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more of these videos, and also to help pass this on if you thought it was valuable. Once again, Twitter, crypto_old for updates throughout the week. If I can't get to the videos, Altcoinbuzz.io is where you're going to find all kinds of great articles throughout the week on what's going on in the crypto news from all our talented writers. And until next time, may all your trades be good ones.